In my last video, I put up this piece of wood. This is going to hold all of the components for the solar system, and then we built the battery box. So now we're going to mount all of the components that we need to mount, and then we will wire them together afterwards. So for starters, this is my charge controller. It's a Morningstar TriStar 60 amp controller. It needs to be placed as close to the batteries as possible, so we're going to keep it about here, nice and low, so it's just a short run from here to the batteries. This is my inverter. It's a Morningstar SureSign 300 amp inverter, or 300 watts, I think. I forget. Yeah, 300 watts. So it should be plenty for just charging laptops or whatever. Okay, so on battery terminals, it's important to only have a maximum of 3 things on each terminal. So, because I might need more than that, I'm going to have my positive from my battery come out to a bus like this, so I can attach multiple things to multiple terminals, and a negative that will also be attached here, just like that. You going?
Yeah.
Alright, so this is a shunt that I just installed, and it's essential for monitoring how much energy is coming out. The battery monitor needs it to function. So the way this is going to go, positive is going to come out of the charge controller, go down to the batteries. The negative comes out and attaches to this side. The other side, and everything else, is all the other negatives for everything, all the other components, like the inverter. The battery monitor, you'll see there's some screws over here on the far side, will attach over here and is able to measure how much energy is being passed through there, and then you know how healthy your batteries are. At least that's how I understand it. The grounding wire that I made, it's 2/0 gauge. This is going to be the grounding wire, and you have to ground to the chassis of the bus. And this is a great place to get contact, and it's connected to the rest of the metal in the bus, and there's a lot of it. So, scraped off some of the paint down here for the bus on the bus body. This is where I'm going to connect my grounding wire down here in the bus, or in the battery box. The other half is going to be connected to the common negative using crimping. So I got the proper size crimp. It's going to fit right over the top here. I could actually probably cut that back a little bit more. And then I'm going to use this crimping tool to do what's called a cold weld, where you put the crimp into this hole and you pump it using this hydraulic pump. And then this thing compresses down, and basically where the terminal ends and the wire begins, you're not able to tell. It just all becomes one solid piece of metal. It's called a cold weld. I'm just making sure all of the wire is inside of that terminal while I squeeze it with my crimper tool. Now, turn the hydraulic off, or turn it on rather. It retracts, and I can open up my mold, and there's my crimp. And, oh, that's a bad crimp. It's not supposed to pull apart like that.
Do it better.
Okay. I think that is crimped. Yep, that's not pulling apart. Okay, and then I, put a piece of heat shrink over it. This is not really necessary because it's just a grounding wire, but I don't want it to ever come apart, and I want it to look nice, so I'm doing that.
Good practice.
So take my heat gun. All right, and that is terminal attached. So I'm just going to be maneuvering it right onto the negative, far side of the negative terminal, just like this. And then cinching it down for maximum contact. Before we go any further, a quick recap of what we've done. I mounted all of these components onto, this is not a wire, it's just a hook. These are all the components that are part of the solar system. They've been mounted on there. I have a ground that has been connected to the body of the bus. These fuses are 110 amps. They are oversized for sure, so I'm probably going to have to get smaller ones, but for now it's what I've got. So this fuse is going to go from this positive, which is positive from the battery. It'll come up through there and into my inverter. This is the AC. It's going to run right over the top of this, probably up to here. This is where I'll put my GFCI outlet. And then this positive, again, positive from the battery, comes up through the fuse and into my DC distribution panel. And that's my charge controller. Okay, I skipped ahead a little bit. We have the shunt, the grounding wire, and you can see that the far side of the shunt is connected to this bus bar where all of my negatives are going to be attached. Down here, you can see there's the grounding wire, and there's the negative wire, which still doesn't have a terminal on the end of it yet, but there's the terminal right there. When I put the batteries in, I left it a little bit long so I could see exactly how much space I'll need to get to the negative terminal of the battery, but the negative terminal will be attached here to this wire. It'll come up to the shunt. This is the only thing that'll be connected to this side of the shunt. On this side we'll have the battery monitor and all of the other negatives that we'll need, such as for the Morningstar SureSign inverter and my charge controller. Also my distribution box. Alright, I'm kind of out of breath because I just moved my 6 Trojan T105 batteries into the bus. I've made a bit of a mess here. But yeah, let's go over really quick what I've done. I'm obviously not finished, but this is my inverter right here. I've wired it in. Eventually the positive from the batteries is going to come up through this hole and connect right here, providing positive to these fuses. One fuse goes up to my battery distribution, or to my DC distribution box. This is the negative. It comes all the way down and attaches to the negative bus. This is for the inverter. It connects from the positive through the fuse to a switch. Again, not wired into anything right now, but if I just don't want my inverter to be turning on or receiving power, I got a switch here. I don't really think that's necessary, but whatever. This thing also has a remote switch that plugs into right here. It's just like a little finger rocker switch. Anyway, okay, so it comes out here and goes into the positive side of the DC battery input. Don't have anything plugged into the AC yet. You'll see it sticks out quite a ways, so my plan is to just put the wire over the top of it and bring it up to here. This is where I'm going to have my GFCI outlet. Okay, so then we have the negative side goes here to the negative bus. And then this negative right here, this is the negative for the battery. Again, this wire is totally oversized for what I need it to do, but I had it, so I might as well use it. So the negative of the negative terminal of the battery connects to this side of the shunt. This is the only thing that connects to right here. Everything else connects to the bus or this terminal. And then there will be the battery monitor will be connected right here. And inside the box, I think. I might connect it here. I'm not sure yet. See this. This is how I'm mounting the mounting hardware onto the solar panels. That's good. Yeah. This is the hole where that 4-gauge wire is going to go through the roof and connect to the solar system, which is under here. And it's a combined, that black thing over there is a combiner box that's going to, all the solar panels will run to the combiner box and then be combined in the box and then come through that hole. All the electricity will come through that wire. And Eric is making a gasket for the hole right now. I think I've got a system that works well enough that I want to tell you about it. This is a universal mounting kit that actually was not very universal. I ended up having to cut it to pieces and to adapt it to my use, but that's what you have to do in a bus project. It was one long piece of metal that I just basically cut up and I attached at the corners. There's a wing nut on the other side of this too. I don't think you can see it, but there's a purple line that marks where I put these things. Basically what I do is I flip the solar panel upside down and like mock it into place. Just kind of like seat it about where I want it to be seated. Did a little bit of measuring to make sure everything is all square and flat and everything. And then I took a little dry erase marker that I found in the bus and I just draw in the feet of the basically right in here like this. Well, it's upside down though. And that kind of gives me an idea about where they're going to sit. And then I'm going to drill in those lines and then I take the feet off and then I place them about where they belong, put some silicone around the holes, in the holes, and then kind of push it down and attach it that way. So I'll go through all of that right now. I've lined up my solar panel. It's just sitting here on the roof, not attached at all, but this is pretty much where I want it. I've already done some measuring to kind of make sure that this is the place that I want. So now got my marker, and I'm going to, let's see if we can get around the corner here, mark this edge so I have about where it's going to go. And then remember, there's the holes. This is really hard to do, both things. You see that hole? Let's see if I can get this on camera. I'm just going to mark in the hole like this and kind of make a mental note of like where that hole sits in relation to the marking. It looks like the hole is mostly on the outer half of that hole, or the mark is on the outer half of the hole. I'm going to go around and do that for each foot and each hole, because I'm using three metal screws for each one. Whew. And then I will take the panel off and show you how I attach them. All right, so that's the solar panel that was that's going on next. I took it out of its spot, flipped it on its back. It's on bubble wrap right now and cardboard, so it's not going to get scratched. These are the marks that are left behind by my dry erase marker. You can see kind of the footprint of where everything is going to go. And so now I'm going to take my drill. And we're going to be drilling right into these holes. Remember, when I made this mark, only half of it was filling that hole because of the angle of the marker. So I'm going to be just inside the purple, as close to the middle as I can be. Okay, so that's one. I'm going to repeat that, but I also got to show you all of these shavings. If you leave them on the roof and it rains, they will rust and make all these kind of like rust pot marks. So take your rag, just wipe them off, get it out of there. Okay, so the holes are drilled. I'm going to be putting in these screws. They look like that. They're Tech screws for metal. I added a washer on there because the washer that comes with it is a little small for these holes. We take some sealant and got a dab the holes. Make sure no water gets in. I'm also going to put some sealant on the underside of this thing, and then I will put it in place and drill it on. So, drilled the holes, place it, screw it in. So now I'm going to take these things, these wing nuts, and start trying to put them in. And if they're off, which they were on a couple of these, it's really easy to just kind of lift it up, loosen them a little bit, and just kind of, tweak them a little bit, whichever direction they need to go. So let's see how well I did this time. Well, it was a little bit snug, but it worked. I didn't have to make any minor adjustments or anything, so that's 3 solar panels attached. Now I gotta wire them in, and I gotta deal with the tipping hardware. So that'll be fun. Alright, I'm hanging out in the shade of my new solar panels. I put the tip hardware on. This is basically just one more piece of that bracket placed right in the middle of the roof of the bus and the bar. And then you can see I've got some holes on the side. You probably can't see because of the sun. It's nice and shady up here though. So none of these are plugged in, but that's going to be the next step. But for now, I'm just basking in the glory of my newly installed solar panels with tipping hardware. Pretty good. I I got the first solar panel wired in. You got two wires coming out of there. They are labeled positive and negative. They get combined into this single wire, which is actually two wires that are run within one piece of conduit, and it comes out right there into my combiner box. And you can see the positive gets connected to the positive bus, which then you can see it goes into this, all the wires were going to be combined on this one bus into this wire that goes down and penetrates through the ceiling into my solar setup. Here's the negative. That was a little harder to get in there, but did it. And then these are weatherproof attachments that go with the combiner box. All of this I got at AM Solar. They show you also how to connect your solar panels to the wires. The rain is coming, so I didn't want to stop to make a video. It kind of ceased for a second. I think I've got enough time. So here we have the connection. You can see here, when I got my solar panel, they were labeled positive and negative coming out of here. They had these little things attached to them that I had to cut off. They're mostly made for putting solar panels in series, so I cut them off. And then I used these 10 gauge crimper tubes, whatever they are, to splice the two wires together. White is positive, black is negative, and then it goes into this wire that I got from AM Solar, and it's going to run over there to the box, which is covered up right now because it was raining a little bit. These are really cool because you crimp them together, and then they have heat shrink tubing that you use to kind of tighten it. Also, make sure that your crimp is going to hold on its own first. Try to pull it apart. But now I'm going to take this other piece of heat shrink tubing and I push it up over these wires. And then I'm going to use my heat gun to seal the whole thing up. Alright, I've heat shrinked all around the connection. Not sure if you can really see it. Heat shrinked all around the connection. Now I'm going to, just like these guys, create these attachment points so that it's not flapping around in the wind. Alright, so I have the points attached over there on the back of the solar panel, and then down here on the roof, and it comes around. These things are pretty cool. Just basically a little sticker, plastic sticker thing, so you don't have to be making holes in your roof. Comes around. I'm gonna make another punch out right here, and then these are my wires. This is just string to keep it from bearing tension on the wires, and then I'm going to cut the wires and attach them to the bus bars. Before I close this up, I wanted to give you a glance here into the combiner box. I want to go over this one more time. This is the positive wire that runs down into the bus right here. This is the negative wire. These are 4 gauge. They go and connect to this bus. This is the negative, and then the positive crosses over, connects to the positive. All the whites are the positive. Basically, all of these panels combine here and go down this wire at 12 volts. So I've got 3 solar panels. Each one is 130 watts, pushing out 12 volts to this combiner box, and then there's a switch down there to disconnect them from the rest of the solar charging system. Okay, everything is wired in. I laid my panels down. You may be able to see how they're arranged back there. You can see it just kind of curls around. I left myself enough slack so that I can tilt the panels up in either direction. Yeah. And then they connect into the combiner box, which has been sealed. And these are my elevators. And that's it. They're wired in. Now I just got to attach the batteries. This wire goes up to the combiner box, and then it comes down. I installed a switch, and it goes all the way down to my charge controller, and then the charge controller goes down into the battery box, while the negative goes over here to this bus, which then goes through the shunt and then into the battery box. Battery bank has not been wired together yet because I didn't want it to like be the batteries to try to be charging themselves or anything like that. So now it's time to start wiring them together. Each of these are 6 volts, so I'm wiring them first in series this way and then in parallel this way. So it's essentially 6 batteries that turn into 3 12-volt batteries that are then wired for 12 volts. So here we go. Alright, the battery box is all wired up. This one does not hold a charge. This is just a thermometer. Still, there are 4 connections on one terminal. They generally don't allow more than 3. I'm probably going to have to change this, but for now, let's go through this. So each of these batteries are connected together, 6-volt batteries, creating 12 volts. That's what this jumper cable does. Power comes in, starts charging here, goes back out to all of my devices. It also is wired in series, right, in parallel right across there. Positive, 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 negative, negative, negative. And then over here, you see my negative wire that goes up and out. Right here. Comes up through the shunt, connects to all of the negative connections for all of my devices. You can see this guy detects that there is some power going on. I'll have to look up exactly what that means, but looks like it can detect that there is a battery. Over here, this is my grounding wire, which comes down through the box and is connected to the chassis of the bus. Okay, everything is hooked up. I also hooked up this fan that we're going to test in a moment. But for starters, I got a yellow and a red light, which I think means that the battery is connected and that it is discharging. Every battery is hooked up in there. Hopefully it's right. I mean, if it's sensing electricity, I hope that's right. So, for starters, we're going to turn on the solar panel and see if anything changes. No change. That's not good. I don't think. Oh. Nope. This is hooked up now. This is the battery monitor. This shows how many volts are coming in right now. This is how many amps are being supplied to the batteries right now. And percent full is not showing anything because the detector has not yet detected that the batteries have been fully charged. My solar setup's been working now for about 3 weeks, and as you can see, I've also added a GFCI protected circuit to my inverter. So I actually can't get power out of this. For some reason I'm having grounding problems, and I looked up the manual in here and they said that I need a specific kind of GFCI, so that one's on its way. But in the meantime, this does provide power. It's just ungrounded, or rather unprotected. This is my battery monitor, which is hooked up to the shunt here. You can see there are 2 wires on the top one, another one here on the only thing that's connected down here directly to the other side of the shunt. And then this is what provides power for it. It's connected to the positive side. All 4 of those wires run into my battery monitor. This is my battery monitor. You can see we've got 13.5 volts coming out of the or rather that's what the batteries are testing at. We have 0.4 amps coming in, 0.5, 0.6. It's because we've got some sun outside, but we're 100% full right now, so it's really just kind of like maintaining right now. If this was down a bit more and it needed to do a serious charge, it would probably be showing many more amps than that. But right now you can just kind of see it's hovering around 100, letting it charge up, discharge a little bit. At least that's how I understand that it's working. But everything's been working really good. You can see I've got my fans are hooked up to my DC distribution panel. They're the only thing that I have hooked up right now to the distribution panel, but if I turn them on, I have power. Solar powered fan. Same on the other side. And it's been keeping it nice and cool in here. Let's just flip this up. And let's go the other way. Yeah, nice and cool. You can see I'm also working on some other things that will be in future videos, but kind of just wanted to give a recap of what it is that I've been doing in here. And yeah, it's all working. As far as I can tell, it's working really well too. Everything stays charged. When I do actually discharge a bit, it goes right back up as soon as I stop. It's fantastic. So I'm very happy with it. Just wanted to give a quick rundown, give you guys more of a glance at what it is that I've done. Alright, a couple of things that are going to be changed. We're going to put a switch here. This is the positive coming in, supplying power to this whole bus bar. I'm going to have a switch over here that I can use to shut off the power basically to the whole system with one little one little twist. It'll probably be similar to this guy up here. And then this one I broke, so I've got a replacement coming. It works okay, but I don't trust it, so I'm going to have to have a replacement bus bar coming to fix that, or to replace it. And if you want to see how the inverter works, I've just supplied power to the inverter. You can see that it is on, and then there's the switch here. When I turn it on, that's allowing the AC to go out, and you can see there's an LED on there, and I can actually run my power drill off of it, which is pretty fantastic. But everything's going to be daisy chained to that GFCI. I really don't need that much power. It's pretty much just going to be used for charging laptops. Everything else is going to be DC powered. So yeah, that's my system. I think it's actually time to start putting some studs in here and thinking about plumbing.